Welcome to Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. My name is Brandon Bornancin, a serial salesperson and entrepreneur, and I'm sitting down with the world's best sales experts to share their top secrets to sales success. Hello and welcome to this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. And I am thrilled, honored, humbled, and grateful to have with me today one of my favorite authors, the first sales book I ever read in my entire life. One of my favorite authors, 4 best-selling sales books. She is one of the top keynote speakers in B2B sales, one of the best-selling sales authors. She's selected by LinkedIn as #1 B2B sales expert to follow. You know her from More Sales, Less Time, Agile selling, Snap selling, selling to big companies. Jill Konrath. Jill was inducted into the Sales and Marketing Hall of Fame as a top sales world leader, and she was selected by LinkedIn as the #1 B2B sales expert to follow. She's one of the most widely sought out keynote speakers. Jill, thank you so much for joining us today. We are thrilled to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's fun to be here. I can't wait to talk with you about this.
Yes. So Jill, as I had mentioned, the audience is dying to know a few things. Me and a lot of salespeople that have read all your books, know you as this almighty sales expert, this sought after keynote speaker, this writer, this expert who sold to all these big companies. My first book that I read in sales ever was Selling to Big Companies, that I applied to crushing it at IBM Interactive, which is awesome. And then Snap selling. The audience would love to know, who is Jill Konrath? Where did you come from? What's your background? How did you get started in sales? And then all the different sales successes and learning experiences throughout your career that helped you level up to the next level. And then obviously number 2, which we'll get into, later, is the sales secrets from the top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. What is your #1 top sales secret? But let's get started with your background. Who is Jill Konrath and where did she come from?
Oh, that's a wide open question. I started out as a high school teacher. Most people don't know that. And awesome. I taught for 4.5 years, and pretty much I hated it the whole time.
Really?
Yeah, I really did.
And what were you teaching?
Home economics.
No.
And sewing. I never took
That's awesome.
in my entire life. I hated every day of it.
I was going to say English or math. I was betting on English and math.
You would think something like that, but no, I was majoring in history, and then I didn't know what I wanted to. I changed my mind. I didn't want to major in history, and my family wanted me to stay in college, and my advisor wanted me to stay in college, and I wanted to drop out. And I said, okay, I'll stay in college, but I'm going to major in something I hate. I'll show you. So I picked the subject I hated the most, which is it was rebellion on my part. That's all I can say. And I did get a degree in it, and I taught for 4.5 years. I hated every single day. It was awful. It was like, who was hurt by that stupid rebellious decision? Me. That was the only person.
So that sounds like that was the first biggest learning experience you had in your career. Was don't waste time trying to get back at your parents or being rebellious.
Yeah, that's something only a stupid 19-year-old, who's hell-bent on telling his parents, you can make me do something, but you can't make me do what I want. So anyway.
Wow. That's awesome. So you did the education, the home economics, you hated it.
I hated it.
And then you're I'm in this life, I hate what I'm doing. And then what's next?
Well, then I tried to get hired by people, and they kept saying, well, you're a home ec teacher. Who wants to hire a home ec teacher? And I kind of understand, because it's kind of like a worthless degree. So I decided, well, if nobody'd hire me, I was going to start my own company. And so I spent a year researching things online, not online back then, and going to the library and reading, and finally came up with some ideas. I found a niche in the market. I'm from the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. One of the things I discovered in my reading was that the metro area I live in has the 6th largest number of corporate headquarters in the U.S.
Wow, that's huge.
Most people didn't know that. I didn't know that at that time
I didn't
either,
know that. Wow.
And the second thing I discovered was that for the first time ever, companies were having trouble relocating executives. And so here I was in a major metro area, and all these companies are trying to get people to come to Minnesota, which, as you well know, does not have the most wonderful weather all the time.
I know. I'm in Ohio. We're from Columbus, Ohio, so I could totally relate. It's cold. It gets a little cold,
Yeah, well, people didn't want to come to Minnesota that much. And so I thought, well, I'll start a company that puts together relocation services. Oh, there was one more trend. Suddenly women were entering the workforce and didn't want to leave and have to come to a new place and start over. So I came up with an idea for a consulting company that would work with people as they were relocating to help families get into a new environment as fast as they could. And cool. Help the kids get oboe lessons or horseback riding lessons, help the wife get a job at that time, put together a business plan, rope together a few friends, and then went to SCORE, the Service Corps of Retired Execs, with my business plan. And the guy said that we met with, he said, this is really a great plan. It's timely. It's like, I'm with General Mills and we're having trouble, getting people to come here from, all around the rest of the country. So it's going to work. And then he looked at the three of us and he said, now, which one of you three is going to be doing the sales? And I leaned forward and was extremely accusatory. And I said, I thought you said this was a good plan. And he said, it is, Jill, but somebody's got to sell it. And I said, well, we haven't talked about that. We're going to have to figure that out. So the reality of it is, it was me who was the driving force, and the other people were coming along for my ride. And so I finally, we talked afterwards. I said, okay, you guys, I will go into sales. I will do it for 1 year. I will learn everything I have to learn about sales in 1 year, and then I'll come back and we'll start the company. So,
oh, wow. Like literally go out, learn, and then come back?
And start the company.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny.
I know. So anyway, I got myself hired by Xerox, and they had a wonderful training program. And
so your plan was like, okay, for us to do this company, I'm going to go out, get hired, learn sales somewhere, and then come back and we'll do this.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay.
So then I got hired by Xerox, and they just at that point happened to have the best sales training program in the entire world.
Yeah. I mean, Xerox was like the number one company to work for back then.
Absolutely. Back in those days, it was like the number one thing. It was fortuitous that I got myself hired by them.
Was it hard for you to get hired by them?
Pardon?
Was it hard, difficult for you to get hired by them, or was it like
the gods were looking out for me at that point in time?
That's awesome.
I called in sick to go interview at one of the big fairs that they have, job fairs. So I wasn't in teaching that day. I was down at the job fair at the Civic Center, and I walked around and talked to, because we had International Multi-Foods, General Mills, Pillsbury. We had a number of food-based, totally homemaki type of companies. And I went around to all those. And every one of them said to me, well, do you have technical experience? And I said, no. And then they said, well, do you have sales experience? And I said, no. And they said, well, then we're not interested. So I got rejected by everybody that I should have been hired by. And
that's bizarre.
And then I was walking out, and there was this huge ramp, because it's it's the Civic Center, huge ramp.
Massive.
There's one guy walking up, and he stops me and he says, how was it in there? And I said, you want to know? And he said, I sure do. And so I told him my experience, and he said, well, I'm the organizer at this event. And did you talk to the people at Xerox? And I said, no. So he turns me around, he walks me right up to the people at Xerox and says, you need to hire this woman. She would be great in sales.
What? Oh, talk about luck and talk about life-changing.
Yeah.
So that guy asked you hey, how's it in there versus
I just thought he was somebody like me who was going to try to get a job. Turns out he organized the whole event.
Wow.
Dumped me off with the Xerox people and handed me over. And 3 weeks later, I was working with them.
That's almost like a little secret in and of itself. If someone stops you, you could have been mad because you had a bad experience interviewing, and then you weren't courteous to that guy, and that guy just landed you your big career at Xerox.
I know.
Crazy. So he takes you back. You get hired 3 weeks later.
Yes.
And then what's next now?
Well, what I discovered is that I really, because Xerox told you what sales was really like, that it wasn't anything related to my perception of what sales was about. And everything I thought it wasn't. And I found it just so immensely challenging and fun and stimulating. And intellectually stimulating, actually.
That's how I felt when I read your books, by the way, for the first time, going into enterprise selling. So I appreciate that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was like, oh man, this is fascinating stuff, and you can go in, and it's not at all. I mean, it's like, wow. And so I never went back to that company I was going to start. I just followed the Xerox route for a while and moved into management and sales leadership. And then I moved into technology sales because I really believed that technology was where it was at, and did technology sales for a while. And then I started a consulting business, helping companies who love their technology too much. Because
that's funny.
Well, what I discovered is that people who start technology companies, they really think it's great stuff. I mean, it's like,
oh yeah.
All today I hear people say, we're a SaaS company and, we're in the cloud and all. They want to tell you all about all their capabilities. Like, guys, nobody cares about those capabilities. All they care about is the impact it has on their business. And so you got to stop talking about it. And I used to run training programs, but they'd hire me on product launches.
Interesting. Like a big product launch. Yep.
And they'd hire me and I would work with marketing, and I'd usually go in at beta test time, and I discovered that at beta test time, they would never, all they were looking for was just the product work. And the answer, I mean, that may be fine, but that doesn't help you sell it. And so I worked with them to talk about how does it help you? If this technology works, how does it help you? How are you doing things right now? What issues, are you having? How does using this new technology make things better for your business, and how do you quantify that from a financial perspective? And I build the business case, and then I would work to train the entire sales force on how to now effectively sell this product.
Yep.
Like they'd have these big kickoff meetings, and they'd come in, and all the marketers would go, here's everything you need to know, and here's how to demonstrate it, and blah blah blah, technical, and then I'd be the one who'd get up and go, okay, you guys, now you learned all this technical stuff. That's really nice. And it's just what you need to know. But now we have to talk about how to sell this stuff, because it's not
impact.
The same. You got to just know this, and now we got to talk about how to sell it. So that's what I did from a consulting practice for many, many years.
That's amazing. And before, so just to take a quick step back. So when you were at Xerox, and you were selling, and you were one of the senior executives there, if you could recall, right? Because this was a little bit ago, but what was your biggest sales success, failure, learning experiences that you had there that allowed you to go and launch this consultancy?
I think, and this will be kind of different because I could say that I've, lost big deals, won big deals, but I think I told you that I went into sales and I said that I would learn it in 1 year. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
When you go into a position with the mindset that you have to learn everything that you need to learn in a year, you become a sponge and you become a learner, because I had committed to figuring it out and being successful in 1 year. So I had no pride going in, and I was there to learn, and I knew I didn't know how to sell, I didn't have a clue how to sell. I am not one bit natural at sales. I don't have the gift of gab or anything that you would think it would be, but I knew that it was a skill that could be learned. And I became how can I say this? From the very first, I was asking for feedback all the time, and I was interviewing people that were a little bit ahead of me in sales. And so if I saw somebody who was doing well, I would go and be interviewing them and find out, now, how did you get into that account, and what did it take, and what obstacles did you run into, and how did you do that? And well, I'll give you want some examples of what happened. There was one situation where I was doing a lot of reading because I needed some other thoughts in order to get good. And I was still not even in my own territory. I was still working in somebody else's territory. I hadn't been assigned it. I was just a trainee still. And I had cold called this one company. And the executive assistant, I'm knocking on doors, cold calling at that time. The executive assistant actually said that her company was making a copier decision. And I said, oh, great, and
perfect. Great.
Demo for the following week. I was so excited. I was still a trainee. And over the weekend, I read a book called Selling at the Top or something like that. It was about how you always needed to work with executives and don't spend your time with the, secretaries or, executive assistants. They had no power. And so I realized in my mind that was talking to the wrong person. She was the assistant to the president of the company. It was, not a huge company, but she was the assistant to the president. And so on Monday, when I got back to the office, I got on the phone and I called the guy who was running the company. And I was so excited because he agreed to meet with me. And so later that week I came in and I was in the lobby waiting and I, said, I'm here to see Mr. Big. And they said, sure. And so instead of Mr. Big coming down to meet me, he sent his secretary down to meet me. And she said, Jill, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm here to meet Mr. Big. And she got right in my face and she pointed her finger at me and she said, I told you I was making this decision. What do you think you are doing going around my back? And she's swearing at me and yelling at me. And my mother had never yelled at me like that. I mean, it was the worst chewing out I ever gotten from a stranger even. And there I am in a lobby with other people watching me and I passed out on the floor.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, whoa is right. I mean, I have never passed out in my life before, never passed out since, but she just was so in my face and it was so intimidating. My job was on the line and I'd so screwed up and I went on the floor. And then I came to and she said, are you okay? And I said,
oh my God, whoa, this is a crazy experience.
And then she helped me get up, put me in the chair. I put my head down between my knees and then she said, I looked up at her and she said, don't you ever come back.
Oh no, lost. Oh man.
Yes. And I said,
stupid buck, damn buck, the selling at the top.
So anyway, it was a stupid book. So,
stupid buck.
Yeah. But anyway.
Great learning experience.
I had to leave there and they were my hot prospect. I was a trainee. I had so blown it. I expected them to be calling my boss and saying what a horrible person I was.
Yeah.
And I got out in the car and started crying because I was humiliated and everything. And I really had to make a decision about whether I picked myself up on the floor and continued in sales or not. And so I literally made a choice to keep going and to figure it out. And I stopped at that point and said, okay, Jill, you really screwed up. You really screwed up. Yeah. Really. What did you learn from it? What did you learn from it? I mean, most people would just stop at the really screwed up stuff, but I went because
and try to quit or something, like use that as the one thing.
What did I learn from it? I had to learn from that experience and I had to be able to translate it so it didn't happen to me again because I had to learn sales in 1 year. That was my goal.
Now, did that happen like 6 months in, a year in, 3 months in?
About 4 months in.
Okay. So you're like, I've got 8 months left. I got to crush it. I got to keep going. That's awesome. Wow.
So in terms of a pivotal decision, I refused to quit. I refused to, and I see this so often with salespeople. I see them not do well in the first few months of their career, and then they start to doubt their ability to be successful. And then they start saying, well, maybe I'm in the wrong job. Maybe I shouldn't have gone here. And even people who go to other companies where they've been at one place, they go to another place and it's so complicated and they're selling something. They don't get the customers. They don't understand how to do it. And they give up too soon. And the reality of it is, I kept having to say to myself that you just haven't figured it out yet. And the people that are ahead of you aren't that much smarter than you. They just have figured it out already. And you haven't figured it out yet. So the word yet was crucial to me.
That's amazing.
It gave me time to figure it out. And again, like I said, I was a sponge. I kept learning. And every single mistake I made in sales became a learning experience. And I literally refused to blow it. I never got down on myself, really. I just said,
kept trying to learn from everything.
You haven't figured it out yet. You're not a bad person. You just got to figure it out. So I might, think about it. I might think about it from my customer's perspective. I'd go ask other salespeople. I'd get advice. And I just kept trying to figure it out. And, I ended up my first year really doing well in sales. and I had fun, so I never left. But
That's awesome. So the first year you ended up doing well, overcoming that massive failure where you pass out 4 months in. The lady kicks you out for trying to go around her back to the CEO.
Yeah. I
Brutal.
had a few other experiences like that too, but the reality of it is, because I said to myself, I was giving myself 1 year to learn it. 1 year, I had to learn it. And I'm not that stupid. They can't be that much smarter than me. So
Yeah, I love that.
Yep.
And looking back, do you feel like it sounds like the year was a blessing in disguise, but like it took me a decade. I like to say like this book we're writing because I read 150 books over a decade in sales, right? Yours being the first one. And then I've read all your other books like throughout the 150 or so. So I think it takes a lot longer than a year. Like, are you saying like, do you agree that it takes like a long time to continue to master sales, or are you thinking like years like perfect to get started?
I've been in sales now for many years, and I have to tell you, I'm still learning. Okay. You can learn a lot in a year, and you can learn enough to be successful in many things, but unless you keep learning and growing, you're not going to be successful. And so, for example, I moved from, selling at Xerox to moving into technology sales. Well, welcome to the next year of my life. It's like
going from like hardware to tech, you think? Like totally different. And some of the takeaways that you said at Xerox, just for the audience, you talked a lot about being a sponge. So you try to learn as much as possible. At the beginning, you talked a lot about being humble. Like you were there to learn. So you were super humble with trying to just learn from everyone, which I love that. Asking for a lot of feedback. It sounded like you iterated a lot. You were always iterating, like learning and then optimizing. Keep going from failure. Refuse to quit. Every mistake's a big learning experience, and be curious, ask a lot of questions. Those are amazing. Like it sounds like that's what led to a lot of the Xerox success. Yep. And then what made you decide to leave the hardware and go into the tech stuff?
Tech was cooler,
like the new thing.
It was where things were going. It was where the smart people were going, and it was awesome. Where all the excitement was.
Sweet. So then you switch into the tech, and walk us through kind of like that experience until doing your product launch expert stuff.
I'm not particularly technical, and it was overwhelming. The technical aspect was overwhelming to me. And I was one of those people that when our corporate office, who happened to be down the street, I was in the branch office, and the corporate office was in the Minneapolis area too, but they'd come out to our branch first to introduce their new products, and then they'd do the company-wide tour to get everybody going, and they'd see how we'd respond. And I have to say that, because I'm not technical, I asked different questions than other people, but I remember being in those meetings on a consistent basis, and they'd say, oh, it does all this, and I'd be the one to go, I have a question. and they'd say, well, what is it, Jill? And I'd say, well, like, this is really cool, I think, but like, who cares about it? Like, what kind of companies would be interested in this, and why? And then they'd explain, and they'd say a lot of times, well, that's your job to figure out, Jill. It's like, and I'd say to them, yeah, but if you tell me this from the onset, you could wind me up and send me in the right direction.
Yeah, you could sell a lot faster.
My learning curve and shorten time to revenue on this new product launch. And they went on, and I'd say, then I'd raise my hand again and say,
they probably got so sick of you raising your hand.
Like,
I know.
They're going to our office first, and there's Jill with her hand always up. And I'd say, okay, like, this is really cool, but how are people doing it today without our stuff, without this new stuff? And they'd say, well, I don't know. This is the newest technology, and it does blah, blah, blah. And I'd say, but but I'm not selling against the newest technology. And they'd say, well, here's who our competitors are. And I'd say, you guys, I don't think I'm selling against our competitors. I think I'm selling against what they're currently using. And what is that? And they'd say, well, it's a lot of different things. I'd say, well, if you could come and just tell me what are the 3 primary ways that they're doing things right now, and what are the issues that they're having, and why, what's the business impact? I said, I could put together a business case and get them to change. but they never did. So then I'd have to stop and figure it all out myself.
And that took a lot of time.
And that took a lot of time, but I'm good at learning. I mean, the one thing I have to say is I'm good at learning now because I'm when you throw yourself in and say you're going to learn sales in a year, you become good at learning.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
go ahead. No,
well, then they bring me back to the corporate university and have me put together classes on how to sell their
really?
stuff.
Oh, because you would put it all together for these tech products, and they'd be like, okay, Jill knows how to break this down so people can actually sell the damn thing. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And that led you into launching your accelerated product launch company then. Yeah,
it was called Applied Strategies at that point, ultimately became Leapfrog Strategies, and it was really focused on how to shorten time to revenue on product introductions.
Wow. What was your biggest learning? I mean, because obviously you launched your own company after that experience, those 3 years that you had at CPT. Was it just, you tell me, what was your biggest success in learning experience there?
Nobody had money in their budget for what I did. I worked in the gap between marketing and sales.
Okay.
And nobody had ever done this before. It was like marketing would put together everything, get it all set up, specs, here's everything you need. Here's your competition. Here's the pricing, blah, blah, blah. And they'd throw it over the wall to the salespeople and they'd say, here it is, guys, go get them.
Wow.
And so the fact that nobody had money in their budget was really interesting to me because so much I'd heard is that you have to have budget. And so I had to create money out of thin air. And to me, my entire career as a consultant was how to create opportunities out of thin air, because nobody was sitting around saying, we want somebody who's kind of bridging marketing and sales, who knows his stuff about, launching products and can get our salespeople up to speed quicker. Nobody even thought that was something that existed. So the fact that I was selling nothing that they knew about was a real learning experience, how you could actually make it happen.
Yeah.
Because most people, they don't have budget for it. Well, how could they have budget for it? They don't know about it. Now what do we do? And
you were creating a whole new market, educating a whole new market on a new service. And then I know obviously from your books, was it a lot of just showing them the opportunity of if they nailed this product launch, the ROI, the time to revenue, all of these different things? Would you how do you do that? How does one create a new market like that?
I digged around with a lot of different ideas. And I think the thing that was most successful to me was I hired a cartoonist.
That's so funny.
And had him make one specific cartoon for me. And it was a picture of an office with a wall down the middle, and marketing's on this side and sales is here. And there's this flip chart where the marketing guy's got all his, products, all his product feature capabilities, brochures, that kind of stuff. And then the product is going over the wall, like I was describing, and the salesperson is trying to catch it and it's plopping on the floor. So people would say to me, what do you do? And I'd say, let me just show you this cartoon. And I'd explain, I work with companies who are launching new products. I'd give that story that I just gave, and they throw it over the wall to the salespeople. And then 3 months later, the salespeople who are really smart, they know who their best prospects are. They go right out to them. They talk to these prospects, and then they come back and they say, it's too expensive. It's too expensive. They won't pay that much for it. Or the customers say, can it do this? And it's like they're trying to rule you out. And if it can't, it's like they're looking for one thing your company can't do. Can it do this? And you go, well, no, it can't. And then they go, well, if it can't do this, we can't change. And so they blow you off, Wow. And the third thing they'd say, which really bothered me probably the most, was, well, that's really a nice product, Jill. I bet you'll sell a lot of them. Oh,
great. That's we wish you the best of luck, but we're not interested.
Right.
That's like me fundraising, oh my gosh, the investors will never say no. They'll say just not right now. Right.
And then you kind of go, it's like, kissing your mom. It's like not cool at all. And so I'd say, well, and so they'd come back and they'd run into this and they'd say the product is overpriced, it doesn't have these capabilities, and nobody wants it. And sales would be pointing at marketing and saying they screwed up again in marketing, and marketing would point back at sales, and marketing would say, those damn salespeople, they can't sell value. And the guy and whoever I was talking to, male or female, sales or marketing, would go, have you worked for our company before? And I'd say, no, but the problem is epidemic and I understand it and I can help you. And boom. I mean, I couldn't prospect too much because I had too many clients too fast.
Wow. And it was just because of like showing that value and bridging the gap I
just had one graphic, right now people have all these detailed PowerPoint slides, everything it can do. And here's the history of my company and blah, blah, blah. And here's all our capabilities. I had one graphic that highlighted the issue and I could talk to the issue. And I literally say, that's what I do. I solve that problem. And they go, how soon can you start?
Wow. That's incredible. And then it was like, I mean, you did that for 14 years. You did that for a long time, like moving into your own like product launch company.
Yeah.
Incredible. When you were doing that, which is awesome, like the biggest sales success and the biggest sales failure / learning experience of doing applied strategies. Because then after that, you launched selling to big companies, which changed my life, which changed a lot of salespeople's lives. So I appreciate you. But like applied strategies, can you remember the biggest like sales success and biggest failure / learning experience?
The biggest thing I learned probably in that whole time frame was to not put too many of my eggs in one basket.
Like, and when you say too many eggs in one basket, like one client or pipeline?
I had 2 big clients, and because I was so good at generating business and I figured out how to do it. And I told you I'm in the Minneapolis area. I'm on the St. Paul side of Minneapolis, St. Paul, divided by the Mississippi River. And for me to get to the Minneapolis side might take 45 minutes to drive over or an hour and a half, depending on how far. And I decided that was too far to travel. So I only worked within a
That's funny.
25-minute radius of my house.
That's okay. So funny.
And I had enough big companies, to keep me going. And finally I got down to only 2 companies, multiple divisions of 2 companies. And they were 20 and 25 minutes from my house. Wonderful. Perfect. It's like
awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, ideal state.
Ideal. Until one year, both companies came under pressure from Wall Street at the exact same time. I was in multiple divisions, and in the past, when they came under pressure, the divisions that weren't doing well would have funding cut and would be stressed, the leadership. But suddenly Wall Street said, 3M, which was a big client of mine at that time, 3M, thou shalt deliver better earnings.
Uh-oh.
And that meant everybody in the whole company had to cut. And when you're an outside consultant, you're the first thing that is cut.
Wow.
So both of my big clients had that happen within a 3-month span, and I had 5 months booked out solid in front of me, and suddenly it all evaporated.
Oh man! And that was right during the .com bust, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Oh man, it's because I remember. Similar thing, different person, but Benioff was going through the exact same thing, like building Salesforce. He was running out of cash because the .com bust and all these tech companies, they're in tech and you're doing sales consultant and you felt it even consulting with 3M and another big company.
Yeah, 3M wasn't high tech, but it was a technology driven company. They're full of engineers that love their technology too much.
Technology and manufacturing. Yeah. I mean, wow.
Yeah. And just literally my business was wiped out. They said, hang in there, we'll come back. I hung in there for a few months and they didn't come back. And suddenly they bring in a new CEO and he's into black belts and all the stuff about quality. And suddenly I realized it was over. And then I had an existential crisis. Like, who was I and what did I love to do? And what did I want to be when I grew up?
Nice.
Yeah, right. It's really wonderful to get that when you're in the middle of your career, And I actually kind of walked through the valley of death for a couple of years before I emerged on the other side. And then I finally got ready to go. And suddenly nobody answered the phone and all calls rolled to voicemail and nobody got back to me. And I was like, what the hell just happened? I mean, I used to be really so good at this and suddenly nothing, you know?
I love to hear like, just like you've had success in sales, and then like even after having success and running your own product launch company for years, super successful, the dot-com hits, and then you even go through a point in time where you're in crisis mode. And you said that went for years?
Yes.
Like, okay, so you lose your two big clients, your whole year is shot, right?
That year was shot.
And you're trying to find yourself, right? You find
then I get the existential crisis.
Yeah, the existential crisis. Like, what does one do? And I like to call sometimes I like to call this like when you get stuck or whatever, and you're just trying to figure out, like you're at a low point, and you're trying to get unstuck. Like, what did you do during that whole period? Was it just like, yeah, I mean, walk me through that, because a lot of people could probably relate to this. Like they've had success, they've had failure. I know I've made millions and lost millions multiple times. Like it's the losing part isn't as good as the other part, the former. But
you always do learn some things there, don't you?
Always. Well, I think in the existential crisis, you learn sometimes the most.
Yeah.
So like, how did you get through this really low period?
It was interesting because at first I tried to go back to what I did best. I mean, when I finally decided I had to move forward, I went back to product launches because I knew how to sell product launches really well. And I knew the verbiage. I knew who would buy me. I knew who to call on. Just I was going to go after different companies. And I did land clients right away. I mean, I landed some very large clients.
Oh, awesome.
Well, not really. I mean, I landed Medtronic, which is one of the biggest medical device companies. They're in my backyard. They were 30 minutes from my house.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. I do some work with them out of LA. They've got an LA office as well.
Yeah. And then I landed Deluxe Check, which is one of the two largest check printers in the world. And they were about 20 minutes from my house. So, I mean, I was still keeping in my neighborhood. Yeah.
You're following your ICP requirement of 20 minutes from the house.
I know. I had young kids at the time, kids at home, and that was important to me to not be on the road and gone all the time. So I landed clients. I did some interesting projects with them, a couple projects actually. But what happened is I actually sabotaged myself on my second project with both of them. And I did some really stupid things that I would have gotten mad at if I was a client as well.
Like how did you sabotage? Like taking too big a risks, or like, what do you mean?
No, like in the stuff that I did, I actually charged them for stuff that I had done, but I didn't forewarn them that this would be extra. That's shitty stuff to do to a client. If you're going to charge them more, they should know that this is out of scope and that this is a surprise when that happens, right? And so I both the clients, big companies, first time I ever pissed off a client in my entire life. And neither, I didn't want to work with them anymore and they didn't want to work with me. And so now it's like, oh God, now what do I do? This is what I've done for years, 15 years. And I seem to be sabotaging myself. It seems like I'm not supposed to go in this direction anymore because I've never blown it before. And so then I was like, well, now what do I do? And I was just totally lost. And so then I really had to try to figure some things out. I didn't know. So I'm a sales consultant and I'm out there and I'm talking about being a sales consultant, and I'm really embarrassed because I'm a sales consultant with no clients. That's not very good.
So tough.
It's really embarrassing.
And you're just starting to pivot because you had this amazing, successful career in product launches. Now you're pivoting to like sales consulting. I
didn't know what I was pivoting to.
True.
Yeah, I was struggling with my own value proposition because I had such wonderful clients for all these years, and they had given me, like, I'd go in and start out with product launch and they would help me. Like one of my clients put me in charge of future scenario planning and working with the their team and they had me work with them with Boston Consulting, and they pulled together these incredible future scenario plans, like so creative and so fun. And so I have that capability. I have the ability to find value propositions in anything. And, it's like, oh, I like this and I like that. And then I had no clients.
You're like, I like it all. I'm great at it all.
Yeah,
and I can't help anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so what happened? So,
you're going through this period.
And I finally mentioned to people that I didn't have any clients, and other people, I'd say, you guys have any trouble? I just like, God, this is awful. Nobody's answering the phone. And then they'd say, God, I'm having the same trouble. And once I realized that it wasn't me, that the market had shifted.
Interesting.
Then I detached from it because I thought I lost my mojo. And I detached from it personally, and then I treated it as a challenge. Like, how do I solve this particular problem? If nobody's answering the phone and nobody's responding to my emails, what do I have to do to get a response? And then I became curious. And once I get curious, I throw myself in and start studying things and analyzing. The
curiosity again, like you had when you first got at Xerox.
Right. Now I'm got to learn it again. That something's out there, and there was a single book. Every book out there assumed at that time that you were sitting in front of a client. It's like I'm going, well, that's great, but how do I get there? I know what to do when I'm there, but I can't get there.
Wow.
And so then I became, a sponge again and immersed myself. And then I came back and started experimenting and crafting. And I finally got my own business back and got it up and running really well. And then I said, now I need to de-Jill it. I need to take me out of this process in order for me to make it so other people can do what I do. And so that's when I started. And so that was the whole next phase of my career.
To de-Jill it. So that you could scale the company, you mean?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's not just about me. It's like, what is it that I'm doing that's replicable here? There's a process. I am rolling out a process, and it is now effective every single time. I can guarantee that I'll get in touch with somebody, 8 to 10 touches, and the messaging should just be like this. But I had to take myself out of it and say, how can I make it so that it is a process that other people can use depending on what market they're in, who they're selling to. And so that's what I've been doing ever since then. And all 4 of my books are related to sales challenges that I faced.
Yeah.
Very particularly that every one of them is my sales challenge. And it's about me throwing myself in and learning what it takes. Like snap selling is suddenly I discovered that everybody was busy. And the sales that were supposed to be happening got stopped midstream for no reason. It's like, how do I keep them going? And then I discovered that, that people said to me after Snap, they said, well, that's really good, but I'm crazy busy too. What do you have for me? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm crazy busy myself. And then I realized that one thing I'm really good at is learning and quick on the uptake. So I wrote a book, Agile Selling is How to Get Up to Speed Fast in a New Job. And then people still kept saying, Snap selling is really good and it's really helping me, but Jill, I'm crazy busy. And I'm crazy busy too. And finally one day I went, I am so sick and tired of being crazy busy. There's got to be an answer. So I spent a year studying that.
Wow. So
and wrote that book, More Sales, Less Time.
Yeah. And congrats, by the way, on all the books. So when because you did a few years of consulting before you did selling to big companies, because it went selling to big companies and then Snap selling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, because you've got a home economics teacher that learns how to sell at Xerox, that then learns tech, that then learns product launches, that then goes through an existential crisis. And then you find this like selling to big companies. Okay, everyone's got this hardship. No one's being able to connect with these prospects. Right. So you're going to teach them how to sell with selling to big companies. When you were building this selling to big companies, like the big sales success or takeaway because the book came like 4 or 5 years after you were running the consultancy, right?
It took a while to write the book.
Yeah. Like when you were doing the selling to big companies thing, were you like consulting like every week, every month? And then you wrote the book, like how did that work?
Well, when I was consulting is always in project format.
Yes. Different SOWs, we're doing this thing.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And then was the book to de-Jill it so you could kind of like teach people at scale?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, then I started working with people and doing training on, how to do what the book is about. And then my training kind of evolved as my challenges evolved and what I was interested in. I mean, I'm somebody who keeps evolving, and I can't help it. It's what I do.
That's
I
awesome.
like to learn and grow, so I keep tackling new stuff. And if I have to do the same thing over and over again, I get totally bored.
Yep.
So that's why I keep tackling new challenges. And that's why I wouldn't build a sales training company, because that would make me want to do the same things over and over. And I want
forever.
to explore worlds,
Yeah. So, and then when you wrote the book to like coach people, talk to me about that challenge. Was it, because you probably taught it for 4 or 5 years, so you probably had like the outline and the document and everything. Like, was it pretty easy for you to write?
Well, writing is never easy. Let me just say.
Yeah,
writing is never
I
easy.
agree.
Was it easy? Writing is a process, and there's a formula. And I studied and reverse engineered what it took to.
Of course, you studied and reverse engineered. There's that curiosity and that.
And I got a formula, and now that I have the formula and see the process, then I got the folders. I mean, I discovered that time when Selling to Big Companies was written, that 60,000 words was the average word. Best books that were selling had 5 or 6 sections in it. Each section had 4 to 5 chapters, and each chapter was about 2,500 words long, and each chapter was broken down into 4 to 5 subchapters. Okay, so now I have a framework.
Yep, I'm gonna study you as I like. I'm gonna be like, all right, Jill, you're my book coach as we knock out these books. Yeah. So that's another lesson, was like reverse engineer other people's success. Like you just said everything. So like if you want to do something, go study and reverse engineer the people that have already done it.
Right. When I put up my first website, I looked at over 200 websites of people who were in similar businesses to me, and there were only about 5 or 10 that I liked, and then I stopped. And some of them I looked at and went and was gone in 2 seconds. But the ones that captured my attention, I would write down and I would analyze what they were doing to capture my attention, and then I built my first website based on that.
Awesome. Who was if you can remember, who was like one of the top authors or thought leaders at the time that you were like, that really inspired you when you were creating your website?
Named Dave Stein wrote a book called How Winners Sell.
How Winners Sell. Awesome.
And his was a book I deconstructed. His website was spot on. It spoke exactly to the VP of sales. I mean, it was like really good. And then there were other websites, and I was looking for sticky websites that, ones that made me stay on the website for a long time. And I discovered some things, and then I created my own. I created 2 assessments on my website.
That's so cool.
So I'm sort of a nerd. Like whenever I do something, I really do it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm doing the same thing with like building this sales leads platform. Like I'm studying Benioff. I'm studying the Jigsaw guys. I'm studying I mean, these people are investors in my company now. They're advisors, because like you just try to reverse engineer anywhere where you want to go. People have done it before.
Yes. Yeah.
And they'll help you get there quicker.
It's like you get the shortcuts, you see what's working, what's not working, and it's like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you like mathematically broke it down, and you do this in your books too, which is great. But so you've got, selling to big companies. You move on to snap selling, which was one of my favorites. I mean, they're all my favorite, but snap selling was great. I guess as you're writing these sales books, and then as you're like, what are some of the biggest sales successes or learning experiences as you run, your Jill Konrath Incorporated, right? As you run like this consulting agency, these best-selling sales books, like we went through deconstructing and like reverse engineering, curiosity. Like what was the next phase over the next 10 years? Because it sounds like after that existential crisis, everything was kind of uphill once you figured out your lane of like, okay, I'm supposed to be teaching people how to sell. And then you kind of evolve to how sales evolves, and then you're learning these new ways to sell, and then you're teaching people the new ways to sell. You're like documenting almost. Are you just documenting everything that you're doing? And then that sounds like that's all how your books were.
Well, I'm not just. I mean, yes, the books are my own personal exploration, but I also have a lot of science. I mean, I'm studying neuroscience and cognitive science at the same time and bringing that in. I mean, when I studied snap selling and like, for example, more sales, less time, I had to read a ton of books outside the sales field to deal with the impact of distraction and overwhelm on people. And then I had to interpret it and try to figure out, okay, if this is what is happening, what does that mean we have to do from a sales perspective in order to be effective with people who are going, who are suffering from severe, overwhelm and can't keep focused. I mean, what does that mean? What are the implications it means for the sales force? I mean, so there's a lot of not just research and not just me experimenting, but literally thinking through these things and applying the information that's out there to the sales field, and then thinking about how do I share it with people in a way that is interesting. And also, so then once I get it where I'm going with this, then I start searching for people who are doing things different and create other examples. It's not just Jill's journey,
Yeah. Wow. And then you have to so basically you have to have this curiosity and this intelligence to study these other industries, learn what you could apply from that to sales, then also communicate it with your target audience. It's like taking a lot of your principles of selling to sell these new sales strategies to the audience, to the personas.
Yeah, but that's what's fun to me, That's what I do.
It's like almost like a product launch.
Yes, it is. It's all new every single time, which is why I liked product launches, because it was never, ever the same. Different markets, different products, different competitors, different status quo, different ways of selling, different companies, Wow. I mean, I sold, like I said, I was working Medtronic, and I went in and watched them, I watched them create a beating heart thing for open heart surgery, and I was watching pigs have surgery, and I was doing that one day, and then I was doing software the next day. I mean, so it was fascinating, fun. Yeah,
that's incredible. And when it comes to like the next 10 years, like up until today, what would you say the biggest learning experience with this pathway to success? So, the next 10 years, like up until today, have been really successful. Have you experienced any existential crisis? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what was the big level up experience takeaway over the past decade for you?
Well, for me, I think what's important is everybody understands who they are as a human being. And for me to be very clear that I am somebody who likes a challenge, and I likes a different challenge. I really love the sales field. I mean, I need to stay in the lane where I'm constantly facing challenges that need resolution. To me, I've discovered over the years that I don't want to build a giant, firm. I'm a practitioner. I like creating what I create. And so it's the deep knowledge of yourself and what is it that motivates you, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, like this authenticity. You've kind of discovered this like pure authenticity. And like if you don't follow it or you don't stay true to it, you've tried that before, and it sounds like it just hasn't worked every time you try to go ahead.
Yeah, I need to be Jill, and I need to do what I'm here to do in this world, and bring my gift to the world. And my books are my gift, because you don't make any money with the books. Yes, you do make money with what happens because of the books, but I mean, my books are the accumulation of the knowledge that I've learned about what actually works, and I try to make it like ridiculously practical. So
wow. Well, Jill, sales secrets from the top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. 4-time best-selling sales author, selling again, from home economics to Xerox, to the product launch, to the sales tech, to Medtronic consulting, to running, selling to big companies. And now Jill Konrath, if you had to go back in time and give yourself one sales secret, if you hired someone, you could only give them one piece of advice, one sales secret, the secret sauce to sales success, what would that be?
Be a learner.
Be a learner.
Be a learner. I mean, be open to learning from everybody around you. It's not about you, and it's not about studying your own stuff. If you learn from people, you'll find out what it takes. And if you keep yourself in a learning mode, you will constantly be adjusting to the changing market, and you will be ahead of everybody else, because you're studying, what difference you can make. You're studying your marketplace and your segment and what's important to your customers. You're studying what's happening in the economy and what difference that would make. You're studying the impact of mergers and acquisitions on your customers' technology stack. I mean, if you start throwing yourself into the learner part, and you'll become an invaluable asset, and you'll be really good at what you do. So to me, the essence of this is to stay on top of the game. I mean, to not get complacent. I mean, I got complacent once. Boy, don't put all my eggs in one basket, I mean, I said that earlier. You get complacent and have just a couple clients, and even though they're feeding you well, you can be wiped out in short order. But if you're constantly growing and on the edge and trying new things and working with different things, you will be desirable to your prospects. They'll want to work with you. They'll want to talk with you to see what you think about. They'll want to find out how they can help their business, grow or reduce costs or whatever it is, because you bring them ideas.
Wow. Always be learning. You positioned it different. You said, have to be, what was it? Have to be learning, or I said always be learning, but
yeah,
always be learning.
Yeah.
And I love the reasoning of why you say that. Like, I feel like a lot of salespeople, marketers, entrepreneurs, even myself, it's hard to stay in that state of like always be learning. It's easy to get complacent.
It is.
How do you force yourself, or how do you stay motivated to always be learning?
I think it's hard sometimes because you're really busy in life. I think it's very hard. How do you motivate yourself?
Well, I guess like, I could read your first two books, for example, and I'd be like, okay, like I get Jill. I know Jill. I read Snap and Selling to Big Companies. I don't need to read More Sales, Less Time or Agile Selling, right? Like that would be being complacent, right? Or like not having that hunger.
Well, yeah, and it's not even about that. I mean, the reality is people can be listening to podcasts on their way in and out to work. I mean, that's a way to grow. You can go to your industry conferences and meet people and learn a lot that can help you be better. That's a way to grow and be curious and learn. At the same time, you're meeting people who you could actually, do business with. And so to me, it's a function of staying at the top of your game. And people sometimes forget the fun of doing things for the first time, And if you're constantly learning and you try something new and it works, you can go, yes, that worked. And it's really fun when you do that. And I think we forget the fun of it too, because we get so blasted serious about the work.
Yeah. And it's like, it's typically also really hard too, like to do something for the first time.
Yeah.
It's hard, like
really hard. And you fail and you screw up and I fainted, that one time. I mean, like,
yeah, you fainted, right? Like selling for the first time. Wow.
Yeah, but like with companies, if I was running a sales organization, I'd run an always be learning sales organization. And I'd have the salespeople see how they could get better. I'd have them look at their own conversion statistics and say, only 1 out of 20 phone calls that you make turns into a meeting. How can you make that better? What is it that you can do? What are the variables in the phone call? What else can you change? And I would get people working together to explore what can we do to make it better. I think that to bring people together in terms of how can we learn, how can we all grow and get better is a really crucial thing that companies should be doing.
I love that. Oh yeah, always be learning. And the way that, because you're very busy, obviously with your customers, with the books, with the keynote speaking, what are some ways that you're always learning? So you said, listening to podcasts, going to industry trade shows. Like if you hired someone, or if a new sales bee's like, hey, Jill, your recommendation from the book and the show that I just read from secretsalesbook.com is to always be learning. Like, what are some ways to just get started with always learning?
Oh, I would focus on learning about the customer first if I was starting something new.
Really? Like don't buy like the sales. If you're in sales, don't buy all the sales books. Like obsess over the persona and the customer.
Yeah. That's the whole context. I mean, these are the people that have the issues that you're supposed to be selling to. I mean, to understand what they're doing and what their roles and responsibilities are, what their business objectives are, what their struggles are and their challenges, what trigger events are happening in their company, and what, the fact that third quarter earnings were down. What does that mean? And how could that tie into what you were selling? And, to just focus on the customer the whole time. That's the essence. I mean, people get trained so much on the stuff they sell.
Sales strategies and the product. Yeah. Versus the customer.
Yeah.
It's all about the customer. No one cares about your sales script for this or that. Like, who's the customer and how can you help them?
Right.
Wow. Yeah. And a great place to understand the importance of knowing who the customer is Jill's books. Like, I still send out the first page of the book where you talk about the life of the persona. I've got a picture of it on my phone that I still text new reps. Like, this is what you're up against, and this is how busy people are. Yeah. And this is like, if you don't connect and research and deliver value and obsess over the customer roles, responsibilities, KPIs, you'll never connect. And you'll never be successful in sales. I love that. I thought you would have said like books, like read more books or read more sales, but to always be learning, like first study the customer.
The customer, everything's with the customer. It's where it's all at. And when you understand the customer there more, you would know how you can help them. And then it's not about sales techniques. It's about focusing on, here's where they are today. Here's what they're trying to achieve. There's a gap involved. And how can I help them close that gap with my product or service? And it's a conversation. And it's like you would have with somebody you knew.
Yep. Yeah. And then you could write your value propositions, your offers, your emails, calls, social touches, pitches, ROI business cases, all align from that. Some of the best places. Oh, go ahead.
And let me just say one more thing too. I mean, to me, again, I study a lot of things, and I study metacognition, which means the ability to think about thinking. And
okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of a nerd.
I love that. Why did you start the art of thinking about why did you start studying that?
Well, because I come from education, and I've studied the levels of thinking. At the top level of thinking, there's just the comprehension level, and then there's the ability to put it to practice. Like when you're a new sales rep, like I just learned all this stuff and now I got to call somebody or got to give a demo or something. That's putting it to practice. But then the next level up is the ability to analyze and to say, oh, I'm working with this customer that has these particular issues, and let me think about what might be most important to cover. Analysis. Above analysis is synthesis, which is the ability to create something new. So as a salesperson, you create demos, you create emails, you create voicemails, you create conversations. This is all a function of creation, right? And so we do this all the time. But there's one level of thinking higher than synthesis, the creative mode, which is the ability to evaluate what you've created. And not just look at it from your perspective, but to actually look at it from another perspective. So, for example, today, before I talked with you, I was working with a client that I'd been out and done training with the organization the other day on how to, leverage this stuff in Snap Selling to set up meetings. And now they're going to market, and they have campaigns, and they want me to look at what they've created in their messaging campaigns. And first thing I did, they've just been through my training. Okay, so I've got this in my hand right now as we speak. And the first thing I did is I read their emails aloud that they were sending out, and I timed them, and they were 37 seconds long, 31 seconds long. No, these are voicemails. They're voicemail. 37, 31 seconds, 43 seconds long. Well, I know that no human being can listen to more than 20 seconds in a voicemail. So in my feedback to them today, I just said, I just want you to listen to what you've created, and I want you to sit in the role of the customer, and I want you to tell me when you would delete me. That's all I care about. When would you delete me?
Yep. The dreaded D word that you talk about, right?
Right. And so, believe it or not, they all deleted themselves before the end of the message. I mean, this is the stuff that we just created, but they had all these things that they thought were important, and they wordsmithed it, and they thought it was perfect. But nobody sat in the role of the customer and took a look at what they'd created from the perspective of somebody else. And that is the essence of what you should be doing. That's why the customer is so important. So you can not only understand them, but you can create stuff that will resonate with them and flow and make sense.
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. I love it. I'm a little worried. Like, what if I didn't pick up your book as the first book that I read going into enterprise sales, like at the age of 19 or whatever? It was right after I lost millions too. And I'm like, I'm done with entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pick up a book and literally, was your chapter about being obsessed with the persona and the goals and the wants and the needs and the KPIs. And like, I still look at the write-up about the life of the customer and like always be learning. And I love that number one, look at the customer and figure out how, like, everything about them. It's funny because we're creating all these sales funnels for our ad campaigns and we're doing account-based sales and marketing and combining it all. Like, I don't think they should be separate. I think ABS and ABM should literally be one, like just account-based everything. And when you do that, to write the ads, to write the landing pages, to write the case studies, everything's got to be about the customer. So like, if you don't know the customer, you can't do anything. Yeah. And that's interesting because I think like a lot of people would think, again, like, okay, I'm new to sales. I should go buy a bunch of sales books or whatever. But wherever you're about to work or are working, double, triple down on the customer, studying the customer. Like, and you said, what's that top level of learning?
It's called evaluation. It's
evaluation.
Evaluate what you created, and we can evaluate it from our perspective. But I think in sales, the ability to evaluate from the perspective of another person is it's something we're all capable of doing. We don't have to. Every one of us has it built in. We just don't take the time for it. For example, when you were a kid, did you ever do something on a Friday night as a teenager that your parents might not have approved of?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So the next morning you roll out of bed at 11:30 and your mom says to you, "So how was last night, Brian? How was it?"
Yeah, it was great, Mom. It was great.
What'd you guys do?
Just laid low, just hung out.
Just hung out. See what I mean?
Yeah.
And why did you do that? Because you knew how your mother would think. And you knew that if you told your mom what you were really doing,
yep,
you said, "You are not going out. You're grounded. Give me your keys. Give me your cell phone. Give me, blah, blah, blah."
Happened to me a lot, unfortunately.
Yes. So you were able to think like your mother. Put yourself in somebody else's. And see, most of us don't have enough customer experience, and we don't understand our customer enough that we can sit in our customer's shoes and interpret what we have created, this message that we created, the demo we created, the PowerPoint we created, to interpret it from the customer's perspective and say, am I bored? Is this relevant? Does it flow right from the customer's perspective? Where have I screwed up? We don't do that.
And what's the best way to do that? Because you even just coached a client who's studying all your stuff, who's finding it challenging to hit that top level of like looking at it from the customer experience. Because we're all writing hundreds of sales scripts, right? Calling scripts, emailing scripts, social scripts, demo scripts, discovery scripts, meeting callback scripts, sales objection scripts, closing scripts. Like, how do you take a step back and evaluate this customer experience level? To
me, it's just simply a discipline. If I was a sales leader, I would be reading these to my sales reps and say,
just out loud, what do you think?
This person, is there any place you would have deleted me? And if so, why? Remember, you're really, really busy. You're running to a meeting in 3 minutes. You're checking your email before you run to the meeting. You've got a lot of other stuff to do, and you got to take your daughter to soccer practice at 4:00 today. Yeah. Is there any place you'd delete me? Did your subject line even interest me? And when you get people to think like that, then it becomes a discipline. Most people do not know that level of thinking is something that is even possible. They just don't do it. And it's just something that's, everybody knows how to do it, but we don't take the time. We don't even understand that it exists. This is what I have to do with everybody, is teach them how to think like a buyer.
Wow. And the amount of conversion rates that would dramatically increase by doing this, like instead of making 200 calls or 200 emails, you could probably drop down to 50 and do this and double, triple results.
Yes, and that goes to my law of maximum impact.
And what is the law of maximum impact? If
you're going to do something in sales, you should do it with the maximum impact. So if you're going to make a phone call, you want to make the best phone call you could make. So you don't have to make 100 calls. You can maybe make 10 calls and get the results you want.
Oh, I love that.
Demo, you make sure it's the best demo you can do, because then you don't have to do as many demos. You don't have to find as many prospects. You don't have to do it. So everything, if you stop and think from a customer's perspective, how can I do it? And, if I'm a customer, how would I do it? You do less, you have multipliers. It's a force multiplier.
Yeah, I love that. Wow. And that could be your next book. The force multipliers. No, I'm just kidding. That's awesome. Wow.
Anyway, I have to go.
Yes, Jill, I was just about to wrap up. So for the audience, Jill, this has been an incredible session. Love your secret of always be learning and, putting the customer experience, their needs, their wants at the center. A great place to start from always be learning. And, you've got a constant theme about curiosity, about learning from failure, about, just constantly never quitting, staying humble, asking for feedback, always iterating, refusing to quit. Every mistake becomes a learning experience, like you'll always be learning, and you'll be able to fill the gaps for your customer. Where can people, for the audience, where can people learn more, connect with you, subscribe with you, follow you, Jill?
JillKonrath.com is probably the best spot.
Awesome.
I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. I've got over a third of a million followers on LinkedIn. I'm kind of out there, but I'd suggest if people want more, to check it out. I got tons of free resources on JillKonrath.com too.
How'd you build such a large LinkedIn following, by the way?
Magic.
That's another book. That's the seventh book, I think. No, awesome. No, that would be number 6. But Jill, thank you so much for tuning in. For the audience, thank you for joining us for Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Pick up your copy at secretsalesbook.com. That's secretsalesbook.com. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%. We release new episodes every Monday and Thursday, so make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube to never miss an episode.